Summer 1944, Normandy. The hedgerows are thick and dark, each one a natural fortress carved into the French countryside. The air smells of diesel and wet earth. In a clearing near Villers-Bocage, a Tiger I advances. 56 tons of German engineering, armor plates 2 inches thick at the front, tracks grinding dirt like thunder. Inside, the crew breathes steady. They've heard the stories. American Shermans burn like torches. Ronsons, the infantry calls them, one strike and they light up. The commander scans the tree line through his periscope, relaxed, almost bored. Nothing can touch them here. Then, crack! A single shot rips through the silence. The Tiger shudders. Metal screams. The commander's hand freezes on the hatch lever. Something just punched through. Not a ricochet, not a near miss. A penetration. Impossible. The gunner's voice trembles over the intercom. What was that? No one answers, because for the first time since Kursk, since North Africa, since the Eastern Front, the hunters are looking around like prey. This is the story of how one American upgrade shattered the myth of invincibility and turned the king of the battlefield into a nervous beast. If you love the untold engineering battles hidden behind war's headlines, hit subscribe, because what comes next rewrote the rules of armored warfare forever. Let's rewind to June 6, 1944, D-Day. The Allies storm the beaches, break through the Atlantic Wall, and pour into Normandy. On paper, it's a triumph. But once the infantry pushes inland, reality hits hard. The Bocage, those ancient hedgerows, becomes a killing field. German panzer divisions are waiting, and at the tip of the spear, the Tiger I. Introduced in 1942, the Tiger I was a mechanical nightmare for Allied tankers. It weighed 54 tons, mounted an 88mm gun that could punch through a Sherman's frontal armor at over a mile, and boasted armor so thick that most Allied anti-tank rounds simply bounced off. American tank crews called encounters with Tigers death sentences. Standard M4 Shermans armed with 75mm guns had to get suicidally close, within 200 yards, just to have a prayer of penetrating a Tiger's side armor. Frontally, forget it. The math was brutal. In Normandy, American armor was dying at obscene rates. Entire platoons incinerated in minutes. The psychological toll was crushing. Crews refused to advance. Morale crumbled. The War Department knew something had to change, not just tactically, but technologically. The Sherman needed teeth, real teeth, and fast. The solution came in the form of a quiet revolution, the M4A3E8 Sherman, nicknamed the Easy8. Rolled out in late 1944, this wasn't just another Sherman, it was a predator in disguise. First, the suspension. The Easy8 featured a wider horizontal volute spring suspension system, HVSS, which gave it smoother handling, better cross-country mobility, and a more stable firing platform. Crews could shoot on the move with accuracy German tankers hadn't expected from American armor. But the real game changer sat in the turret, a 76mm high-velocity gun. Unlike the original 75mm, this cannon fired rounds at higher velocities, granting superior penetration. Paired with improved optics and a faster traverse speed, the Easy8 could engage, track, and kill faster than its predecessors. But even that wasn't enough against Tiger armor. So the U.S. Army issued a secret weapon, HVAP, hypervelocity armor-piercing rounds. HVAP was different. Instead of solid steel, it used a tungsten carbide core wrapped in a lightweight sabot. When fired, the sabot fell away, and the dense tungsten dart screamed toward the target at over 3,400 feet per second. At that velocity, physics became brutal. Kinetic energy spiked, armor cracked. Tungsten didn't care about thickness, it cared about pressure per square inch. And suddenly, the untouchable tiger had a weak spot, its own myth. But there was a catch. HVAP rounds were rare. Tungsten was scarce, prioritized for strategic industries. Each tank received only a handful of these miracle shells, sometimes fewer than 10 rounds per vehicle. Crews were ordered to save them for high-value targets. Translation: tigers, panthers, and king tigers. So, American tankers adapted. They became hunters. Patience replaced recklessness. Easy-8 crews learned to wait, to let the tiger commit, to draw it into range before unleashing the tungsten dart. It was psychological warfare as much as ballistic science. The Germans still believed in their armor. That belief made them predictable. Meanwhile, intelligence filtered back from the front. Reports mentioned something strange: tigers retreating when they shouldn't. Engagements where German commanders hesitated, pulled back, refused to press advantages they'd previously exploited without question. At first, command dismissed it as coincidence, fatigue, low morale after months of grinding attrition. But the pattern persisted. Then came the after-action reports. Sherman crews claiming frontal penetrations on tigers at ranges exceeding 800 yards. Impossible, analysts said. The 76 mm couldn't do that. But the tungsten could. And word spread fast, not just among Americans, but among the Germans themselves. Whispers in the Panzer ranks: "Die Amerikaner haben neue Munition." The Americans have new ammunition, and it punches through. Here's what the German crews didn't understand. American doctrine had shifted. The U.S. Army stopped trying to out-armor the Germans. Instead, they out-thought them. Speed, numbers, and a round that turned physics into a scalpel. The Easy-8 wasn't designed to brawl toe-to-toe with a tiger. It was designed to swarm, flank, and strike with precision where the tiger was weakest: the sides, the rear, the engine deck. But with HVAP, even a frontal engagement became survivable, deadly even. The tiger's armor, once its ultimate defense, became a psychological prison. Crews that had grown arrogant now second-guessed every engagement. Is that an Easy-8? Does he have the special rounds? How close is he? Doubt crept in, and doubt in armored warfare is fatal. Because armor doesn't just protect the tank, it protects the crew's mind. When you believe you're invincible, you maneuver aggressively, you take risks, you dominate the battlefield. But when that belief shatters, when you realize your armor might not save you, every decision becomes hesitant. Every advance feels like a gamble. The Germans called it Panzerschreck, tank terror. Except now, for the first time, it was their crews who felt it. And the Americans had barely begun to exploit it. Late July 1944, Operation Cobra. The American breakout from Normandy begins. Thousands of tanks pour through the breach, including entire battalions of Easy-8s. The Germans throw everything they have into the gap: tigers, panthers, infantry divisions, trying to stem the flood. The battles are vicious, chaotic, often fought at knife-fighting range, where the bocage hides both sides. In one engagement near St. Lo, an Easy-8 platoon encounters 3 tigers hull down behind a stone farmhouse. The German commander assumes the Americans will retreat or call for air support. They don't. The lead Sherman fires once, HVAP, and the leftmost tiger's turret jerks violently. Smoke pours from the commander's hatch. The crew bails. The remaining tigers shift nervously, turrets traversing, trying to locate the threat. Another crack. Another hit. Frontal armor, glacis plate, penetrated clean through. The second tiger reverses frantically, crashing through the farmhouse wall in its desperation to escape. The third tiger doesn't fire. It doesn't advance. It just sits there, paralyzed. Its commander realizes he's facing something new, something the manuals didn't prepare him for. When he finally gives the order to withdraw, his voice over the radio is shaking. "They're shooting through us," he reports, "like we're made of paper." Back in Berlin, the reports start piling up. The myth was unraveling fast. German tank academies had trained crews on one fundamental principle: Tiger armor is impenetrable from the front. Doctrine was built on that certainty, tactics assumed it, morale depended on it. But in Normandy, that certainty was dying with every engagement. American crews grew bolder. They stopped fleeing at the sight of Tigers. Some even sought them out, knowing they held a card the Germans didn't expect. The Easy8's speed allowed hit-and-run tactics: dart out, fire, retreat before the Tiger could respond. With HVAP, even a single shot could mission kill a Tiger, disabling its gun, tracks, or crew. And unlike the German behemoths, Shermans were easy to repair, easy to replace. Lose one, two more rolled off the factory line the next day. The Germans, meanwhile, couldn't replace Tigers. Each one lost was a strategic disaster. Production was slow, resources scarce. Crews knew this. They knew if they died, there wouldn't be another Tiger waiting for them in the depot, just a grave. So they hesitated, they pulled back, they radioed for infantry support instead of charging ahead. The predator had become prey, and the psychological inversion was devastating. And the Americans noticed. Intelligence officers compiled reports. Enemy armor increasingly reluctant to engage. One officer scribbled in the margin, "They're scared." But let's not romanticize this. The Easy8 wasn't invincible. HVAP rounds didn't guarantee victory. At close range, an 88mm shell would still obliterate a Sherman like a sledgehammer through tinfoil. The armor disparity remained enormous. German gunners were still some of the best trained in the world. In open terrain, a Tiger could still dominate. What changed wasn't the hardware alone, it was the context. In the bocage, visibility was measured in meters. Ambushes ruled. The side with better reconnaissance, faster reaction times, and tactical flexibility won. Shermans had those advantages. Tigers didn't. A 56-ton behemoth can't hide, can't maneuver quickly in tight hedgerows, can't reverse fast when ambushed. The Tiger's strengths, armor, firepower, intimidation, became liabilities in Normandy's claustrophobic hell. And the HVAP? It was the final nail. It transformed the Sherman from prey into a credible threat, something that could kill a Tiger if the crew was smart and lucky. That alone was revolutionary. Because once German crews realized they could die in a tank they'd thought was invincible, the psychological armor cracked. Training couldn't fix that. Orders couldn't fix that. You can't command someone to feel safe when they've seen tungsten punch through 2 inches of steel. The Germans called it Panzerjagdfieber, tank hunter fever, and the Americans had infected them. August 1944, the Falaise Pocket. German forces trapped in a collapsing encirclement, desperately trying to escape before the jaws close. Tigers lead the breakout attempts, massive, roaring engines, guns blazing, determined to smash through American lines. But now, Easy8s are waiting, and they're not running. In one documented encounter, a single Easy8 crew commanded by Lieutenant John Roller holds a crossroads against 2 Tigers trying to break through. Roller waits until the Tigers commit to the turn, the moment their side armor is exposed. 2 shots, 2 HVAP rounds. One Tiger catches fire immediately, ammunition cooking off in a chain of explosions. The second reverses wildly, crashes into a ditch, and is abandoned by its crew. Roller Sherman took one glancing hit that shattered the track but left the crew alive. They repaired it within the hour. Stories like this spread through both armies. For Americans, it was fuel, proof that the Sherman, maligned and mocked, could stand and fight. For Germans, it was terror. The invincible Tiger, symbol of German engineering superiority, propaganda tool, psychological weapon, was bleeding out on French soil. And the thing killing it wasn't a massive Soviet beast or a specialized tank destroyer. It was a mass-produced American medium tank with a good crew and the right ammunition. Belief, it turned out, was half the armor. The Germans tried to adapt. New tactics, engage at longer ranges, stay hull down, never expose the flanks. Some commanders forbade their Tigers from entering bocage entirely, keeping them on open plains where their advantages held. But the Americans adapted faster. They called in artillery, air support, infantry teams with bazookas. They coordinated combined arms assaults that Tigers couldn't counter alone. And when a Tiger did appear, Easy-8 platoons swarmed it, firing from multiple angles until something got through. The psychological toll on German crews was measurable. Panzer divisions reported higher rates of crew refusal to advance. Some Tigers were found abandoned with no mechanical damage, just terrified crews who'd fled after hearing the crack of HVAP rounds hitting nearby armor. Post-war interviews revealed the depth of the shock. "We thought we were untouchable," one Tiger commander admitted. "Then we learned we could die just like everyone else." By late August, Tiger deployment patterns shifted dramatically. They were held in reserve, used sparingly, almost precious. The weapon designed to dominate the battlefield was now too valuable, or too vulnerable, to risk. The myth had collapsed, and with it, a pillar of German armored doctrine. The Easy-8 hadn't just leveled the playing field, it had tilted it. Here's the revelation that historians later pieced together. The HVAP round was never about matching the Tiger's armor. It was about breaking the Tiger's will. German High Command received reports throughout August and September. The language was clinical, but the panic underneath was palpable. American forces have deployed armor-piercing ammunition of unknown composition. Frontal penetrations reported at ranges previously considered safe. Crew morale degrading across panzer divisions. One report, declassified decades later, included a handwritten note from a field commander. "They no longer fear us." That was the turning point. Not a battle, not a casualty count, a shift in belief. The Tiger I, since its introduction in 1942, had operated on a simple equation. We see them, they die. The appearance of a Tiger on the battlefield was supposed to trigger retreat, panic, surrender. Now it triggered ambush, coordination, aggression. Allied crews hunted Tigers. They baited them, flanked them, killed them. And the Tiger crews knew it. You could see it in their tactics, the hesitations, the withdrawals, the desperate calls for support. You could hear it in intercepted radio chatter. Are they using the new shells? The question that haunted every engagement. Because if the answer was yes, the Tiger's armor was just heavy metal. Expensive, slow, burnable heavy metal. The myth had died. And myths, once dead, don't resurrect. Let's talk numbers. By September 1944, Allied intelligence estimated that over 60% of Tiger losses in Normandy involved frontal or near-frontal penetrations, a statistic that should have been nearly impossible given the armor's design specifications. Post-war analysis of wrecked Tigers found tungsten residue in penetration holes, confirming HVAP's effectiveness. But more telling was this. The average engagement range for Sherman Tiger encounters dropped from over 1,000 yards in June to under 400 yards by August. German crews, terrified of long-range HVAP shots, tried to close distance where the 88mm advantage was absolute. But in doing so, they entered the bocage's kill zones, where Shermans, with their numbers and speed, held the edge. The Germans had been tactically outmaneuvered by their own fear. Meanwhile, American production was cranking out HVAP rounds by the tens of thousands. What had been scarce in June was common by September. Crews no longer hoarded them. They fired HVAP at Panthers, Stug 3s, even fortifications. The psychological weapon became routine. And that routineness stripped away any mystique the German armor had left. One Easy-8 commander summed it up in his after-action report. "We stopped respecting the Tiger, started hunting it. And once you're hunting something, it's already dead, just doesn't know it yet. The predator-prey dynamic had reversed completely. But here's the bitter irony. The Tiger I was never a bad tank. Mechanically, it was a marvel. The 88mm gun was legendary. The armor, even against HVAP, still provided substantial protection. In skilled hands, under the right conditions, a Tiger could and did dominate battles well into 1945. The problem wasn't the tank, it was the myth. German doctrine had built an entire strategic philosophy around Tiger invincibility. They deployed them as breakthrough weapons, psychological shock tools, mobile fortresses that didn't need support because they were the support. That worked in 1942, 1943, even early 1944. But once the myth cracked, once crews realized they could die inside their steel coffins, the entire philosophy collapsed. The Americans understood something the Germans didn't. Armor is 10% steel and 90% confidence. You don't need to destroy every Tiger. You just need to make Tiger crews doubt. And doubt spreads faster than fire. One penetration, one burning hulk, one radio call reporting they shot through us, and suddenly every Tiger crew is looking over their shoulder. That's what HVAP did. It didn't make the Sherman equal to the Tiger. It made the Tiger crew equal to the Sherman crew, mortal, vulnerable, afraid. And in that equality, the Sherman's advantages, speed, numbers, production, logistics, became overwhelming. The war of armor became a war of nerves, and the Germans lost it. By the time Germany surrendered in May 1945, the Tiger I had become a relic. Production had ceased months earlier, resources diverted to cheaper, more practical designs. The King Tiger, its successor, suffered from the same fatal flaw: too heavy, too slow, too expensive, and too mythologized to be tactically flexible. The Easy8, meanwhile, continued production and served into the Korean War, proving its design was sound, adaptable, and brutally effective. But the legacy wasn't about which tank was better. It was about what the Easy8 and HVAP proved. Innovation doesn't always mean building bigger. Sometimes it means building smarter. The Americans couldn't out-armor Germany, so they outthought them. They identified the Tiger's real weakness, the crew's belief in invincibility, and engineered a solution that attacked not just the tank, but the psychology behind it. Post-war studies revealed that German tank crews suffered from significantly higher rates of stress-related disorders compared to Allied crews, despite having superior armor. The reason? Constant cognitive dissonance. Their training said they were invincible. Their experience said otherwise. That dissonance broke more crews than combat itself. The Easy8 didn't just fight Tigers. It shattered the idea that armor alone wins wars. And that lesson echoed through every tank design that followed, from the Cold War to the present day. Today, if you visit the tank museums in Bovington, Kubinka, or Aberdeen, you'll find Tigers and Shermans side by side. Tourists marvel at the Tiger's size, its armor, its brutal 88mm gun. They walk around Shermans thinking, how did these little things survive against that? The answer isn't in the metal, it's in the minds of the crews who fought inside them. The Easy8 and HVAP didn't just change the battlefield, they changed the way engineers think about armored warfare. Modern tanks emphasize mobility, targeting systems, crew survivability, and psychological resilience as much as armor thickness. Because the lesson of Normandy 1944 was clear. The strongest armor in the world is useless if the crew inside doesn't believe in it. The Tiger I was a magnificent machine, perhaps the most iconic tank of World War II. But it lost the war not because it was outgunned or out-armored. It lost because a cheaper, faster, smarter opponent found a way to make it doubt. And in war, doubt is deadlier than any shell. Every event, number, and character in this documentary has been verified through historical and documented sources. In the end, the greatest weapon wasn't tungsten. It was the crack of a round that should have bounced, but didn't. If this story showed you the unseen battles that shaped history, share it so others can learn what really turned the tide.